Hello friends, today we will talk about the Ontario Employer Job Offer International Student Stream. Anyone who has completed their education either from Ontario or from anywhere in Canada may be eligible if they've done it from the eligible institute and eligible program, right? We'll talk about all of those things. What is the job offer requirements, applicant requirements, employer requirements, what is the process? I will also compare basically, take two profiles and we will compare that how you can calculate your scores and we'll talk about the whole process. So stay tuned with me. So before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Sandhu and I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant based out of Ontario, Canada. On my YouTube channel, I have created many videos related to PNP, express entry, and many tips and tricks related to immigration. So please do subscribe to the channel. You will find it useful. So without any further ado, let's dive into today's presentation. So we will talk about OINP, Employer Job Offer International Student Stream. So let's talk about the job offer requirements because this is an employer job offer stream as the name suggests. The job offer requirements are: one, you need to have a full-time permanent job offer. So full-time means at least 30 hours per week, and permanent means there is a no end date or it's indeterminate, and it has to be in skilled occupation, so which is tier category 0, 1, 2, or 3, and it should meet the low wage level, which is basically should be either meeting or higher than the low wage for specific region of Ontario, and the position has to be urgently needed or necessary to employer's business. Very important, right? And then the work must be based in Ontario because that's the whole primary purpose, that the work you do while in the position of the job offer must occur primarily in Ontario. Now let's look at the applicant requirements. So this is an expression of interest stream. So what does that mean? So it means that first you need to create an expression of interest in the Ontario OINP. And if you are invited, then only you have to submit your application to Ontario. And if you're nominated, you will get nomination certificate, nomination letter, and then you will further apply to non-express entry PR to IRCC, right? So that is how a typical process will work like. The second requirement is education from a Canadian institution. So first thing is it could be an undergraduate degree or a diploma that takes at least 2 years if pursued on a full-time basis from an eligible Canadian institution. Or it could be a graduate degree or diploma that takes at least 1 year if pursued on a full-time basis from an eligible Canadian institution. Or it could be a graduate certificate, a college or a university that takes at least 1 year to complete if pursued on a full-time basis from an eligible Ontario institution. Now, if you look at the education requirements, you clearly see that the first two are from an eligible Canadian institution, but the graduate certificate must be from an eligible Ontario institution. So very, very important to understand that. You need a valid license or authorization. If your job offer is an occupation that requires a mandatory license or authorization, for example, it could be for health care or for trades or any of those kind of things. Then you have intention to live in Ontario, very important one. And if you are applying from Canada, you need to have a legal status and you should maintain that status until nomination. Then we look at the application period, right? So you must submit your application within 2 years of completing the requirement necessary to obtain your degree, diploma, or certificate. So when you talk about application, they're not here talking about expression of interest. So do not assume that you have filed your expression of interest. So that means it's an application. So expression of interest can be thought of as a pre-application, right? It's only when you're invited and then you submit the application, that is what they are talking about, application period, right? So from your completion date or whenever you get a transcript, whichever is earlier, from that day up till 2 years, you have time, you have to submit the completed application. Otherwise, you will not be eligible for this particular stream. Now, let's look at the eligible colleges and universities. So the list is on the website. On the left, you see all Ontario colleges. Then they have also listed the colleges from Newfoundland and Labrador, and universities, Northwest Territories, Nova Scotia colleges, universities, Nunavut, Prince Edward Island, and universities of Ontario and Quebec, and universities that offer graduate certificates at least 1 year in duration. Alberta colleges, universities, British Columbia, you have all the colleges, universities, eligible one are listed here. So please do check this and see for yourself if your college or university from where you have done the program is going to be eligible or not. All right. Now let's look at the employer requirements. So I'm not going to talk about all the employment requirements because the details are on the website. But some other things which I will just general talk about employer is that they need to be in active business for at least 3 years, and their premises has to be in Ontario where you will work. And there are revenue requirements. So 1 million annual revenue in most recent fiscal year if the employer is based out of GTA, and it's half of that, which is half a million annual gross revenue if they are operating from a location outside GTA. Then you have full-time employee requirements, at least 5 full-time employees who are Canadian citizens or PR if it's in GTA, and 3 if they are outside GTA. And the last but not the least, very important is they have to fill the employer form, right? This is not your normal job offer. You have to get the employer to sign that specific form, and which is listed on the website. Now let's look at the scoring factors. If you see that there are approximately 13 scoring factors for this, and we will go over this briefly. So the first scoring factor is job offer. So which tier is it? If it's tier 0 or 1, it is 10 points. Tier 2 or 3 is 8 points. Job offer broad occupation category, so there are different points for that. Then you have job offer wage, so which is basically if your wage is between 20 to $24.99 per hour, that is 5 points. If it's 40 and above, it's 10 points. Then you have work or study permit status. If you have that, 10 points, otherwise 0. Then you have job offer with the job offer employer. If you've already worked with the same employer for 6 months or more, you get 3 points, otherwise no points. Then there are points for your earning history based on your notice of assessment in the last 5 years. Then you have points for the highest level of education. If it's PhD, is 10 points. If it's undergraduate diploma or certificate, it's 5 points. Then you have field of study. If you study in health, STEM, trades, and those kind of occupations, it's 12. If it's business and administration, education, and the list is there, you get 6 points. Then you have Canadian education experience. If you have 1 credential, you get 5 points. If you have 2 Canadian credentials, you get 10 points. Then you have scores for the language. Then you score for the number of languages you know. It is basically English and French. If you know both of them, then you have 10 points. If you know one, obviously you need to prove this with documentation. Then you have regional immigration location of job offer. If your job offer is in Northern Ontario, it's 10 points. If it is in Toronto, it's 0 points. Then you have regional immigration location of study. If you have studied from Northern Ontario, physically attended the classes, you get 10 points. If you studied online or from Toronto, it is 0 points. Now we will do an exercise where we will calculate the scoring factors for basically 2 occupations. One is nurse aide and the other is food service supervisor. So I'm assuming that both of them have done a 2-year diploma from Ontario or any Canadian institute for that matter, which is eligible. And let's start calculating their scores. So first thing is job offer, right? If you see, both of them is in the first one is in tier 3, which is nurse aide, and the other one is food service supervisor, which is in tier 2. So for both of tier 2 and tier 3, you have 8 points. So I'm going to give 8 points here to both of them. Then you have job offer NOC broad occupation category. So we know that the first one is NOC is in broad occupation category 3, which has 10 points. The other one is in 6, which has 3 points. So now we have, they are there. Then you have job offer points. So I'm assuming, let's say, both of them got a job which is for $23. So $23 fall in this one. So they will get 5 points for each. And then we will have points for the work and study permit status. Let's assume that both of them are right now on a postgraduate work permit. So we'll give 10 points to both of them. Let's assume they have not worked with the employers yet. So let's have 0 points for that. So that's fine. Now let's look at the earning history. Let's say they have never worked in Canada before, or if they have worked, they never had a notice of assessment where their income was more than 40K. So we'll have 0 for both of them. And then let's look at the highest level of education. Let's assume they have no other education other than their graduate diploma of 2 years. So that will be 5 points each for them. So let me just move it back. Then let's look at the field of study. Let's assume the person who is getting a job offer from nurse aide has studied in the health program. In that case, they will get 12 points. Whereas the other person, let's say, would have got into something else, which is maybe business and those kind of things. And let's say their score is going to be 6. Then look at the Canadian education experience. Let's say they have only 1 Canadian credential as of now. So both will get 5 points each. Then let's look at the language requirements. Let's say both of them are CLB 8. So we'll give 6 points to both of them. So next is they have knowledge of official language. Let's say they only know English and for which they have the documentation to prove. So they will get 5 points each. Then you have the scores for location of job offer. Let's assume they both are outside GTA. So they will get 8 points. Then the next one is the location of study. Let's say they both studied physically, attended classes, and they did it inside GTA. And then let's say they will get 3 points, both of them, right? So now if you see that the total score for the nurse aide is 77 and the food service supervisor is 64, right? So now we will do a little bit more analysis. So on the screen, you see the previous draws in 2023. So there were 6 draws in total in 2023. And if you see, one of the draw was the general draw, and that for that the score was 82, right? And then all the other draws were basically targeted draws. So they targeted skilled trades occupation. Once they targeted tech and health occupations, again tech and health occupations, and then tech and health occupations and skilled trade occupations. So if you see, the last 5 draws have been in basically targeted occupations specifically related to skilled trades, health, and tech, and there was only one general draw. That might change, we don't know. So this gives you an idea that not only you need to have a good score, but there is also a chance that the draws might happen for certain occupations. If your occupation fall into this category, then only you might be invited, unless there is a general draw, right? Now, what is the process to apply? You have to register with the Oinp expression of interest. You complete the attestation form on the same day you register the expression of interest. You receive an invitation to apply, and then you will have 14 calendar days to submit the application, pay the $1,500 processing fee. If nomination is successful, receive a nomination approval letter and a nomination certificate, and a work permit support letter if applicable. So if your work permit is expiring, let's say your postgraduate work permit is expiring, then you can use this work permit support letter to extend your work permit, right? And then after you get your nomination, you will have 6 months to apply to permanent residence through the non-express entry PR application, right? And if you need any help, my contact number is 437-848-7200. My website is www.dilimmigration.com, where you can go and book the appointment if you want a consultation. And my YouTube handle is @Sandhu Talks. I've created so many videos, as I alluded to you earlier, and I hope you will like this video and subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much.